Hi everyone, my name is Johan van Skalkwyk. I'm from Professional CPD, also from a company called 6CDS, where we specialize in helping candidates and professionals with any and all professionally related issues. The video that we're going to tackle today is how to complete the documentation and what documentation for registering as a professional engineer. The technologists and technicians, I've done a previous recording on that, so you can go and have a look at it on my website. It's also on YouTube, so please go to YouTube, subscribe, and get notifications so that you don't lose out on all of this. And let's get straight into it. First and foremost, ECSA has moved away from first come, first served basis. They're now on Windows. So in 2024, they initiated the Windows of application. So there's specific dates that you can apply to become a professional. They split it into two windows. 2025, we have got exactly the same story. So here we go. Your first window or first cycle will be 22 January to 12 March. Then the vetting happens 27 to 4 April. Then the experience appraisal 26 March to 6 June. Interview sittings will take place from the 1st of May to the 31st of July. And then between 1st of June and 30 August, you should have some kind of indication whether you were successful or not. The second cycle, 15 July to 30 August. 15 July to 30 August. Then the vetting is 15 July to 5 September. And then the experience appraisal 20 August to 26 of September. The interview sittings 1 September to 30 November. And then the stressful waiting period will be between 17 November and 15 December. I will go through how these stages work later in this presentation. Right, first things first, the set of documentation that you need to submit. Please get this right and make sure that you submit all of these electronically. Remember, you're not allowed to submit anything to the council via the email address or mail or post or anything of that nature. First set of documents will be your application documents. That's your administrative documents. Name, surname, where you work, contact details, qualification, disclaimer, all of those kind of information goes in there. The next very important documents will be your training and experience reports. There's no limitation there of how many, but you are limited to 2,000 words. Engineering report, 6,000 word limitation. Can you go over it? Yeah, if you can justify it to a large extent, but try not to go over that. Then you've got your training and experience outline, the TEO, though that's more for people that's got 10 years or more experience. It will help you conserve your word count. So you can use it if you want to, you don't have to, but 10 years or more. Then you've got your training and experience report. Please, if you work on multiple projects, don't add them together because you're going to end up with more weeks than there are in the year. And ECSA is going to take one look at it and say, if you can't even add up the weeks in the year, how do you want to be an engineer, professional engineer? They're going to throw it out. Simple as that. Then you've got your initial professional development, your IPD form. That's all the training that you do. Then there's a new form, please don't miss it. It's called the supervisor checklist. It's a new form that also needs to be completed. I will talk about it later. And then your referee reports, also very important. Well, all of those documents are important. Right, let's just look quickly so that you can understand what are the most important aspects when it comes to professional registration. So number one, you need to have a qualification that's recognized by the Engineering Council. And if it's recognized by them, then that's your first step into the door. So please check if you've got a qualification that it carries ECSA's stamp of approval. The next one is exposure, having obtained the necessary variety of exposure. Now, If you don't have exposure to the full life cycle of an engineering project, you're going to find it very difficult to register. So you should be at least exposed to the full life cycle. I'm not saying on one specific project. I'm saying you could have one project that you do the initial phases and stages, tendering, selecting and appointing of contractors, those kind of things. Another project, you're more involved in the design phase of it. Another one you put on site, got that experience. Another one you do the closeout. Another one you do the handover. And that will give you the full exposure. That is very important because you get, the variety from working with contracts, working with people, working with processes, all of those kind of things. Then we look at competence. Now, competence, that's the 11 outcomes. The competency indicators are your 11 outcomes. And you need to be competent in all of those 11 outcomes, otherwise you won't be successful in your application, and you most probably will either get a deferment letter or be called in for an experience appraisal. Horrible thing, you want to avoid that. All 11 outcomes, if you don't know what they are, there's a whole series on my website on the 11 outcomes where I delve into detail what every single outcome is all about. Then responsibility. Now, responsibility levels, there are 5. Level A being exposed to the environment, then you work all your way up to level E, which means you can run with the project the same as a professional engineer, only difference you're not registered as one. And that is usually operating and dealing with outcome number 9 and 10. Don't stress too much, I will demystify it for you. Now, your documentation list, once again, there's going to be some duplication here, but it's good that you understand and know exactly what's going for what. Geez, give yourself a fighting chance here. So, first one, the first 2 pages of the application form, that's your AN1.1 form and A1.2 form. You need to complete that, sign it, commission it by commissioner of oaths. That's very important. Be sure to nominate 2 of your referees. One should be a professionally registered engineer. If you're an engineer, it should be an engineer. Try and steer away from technologists or technicians as your referees. Try and aim for somebody at the same level as you. And please select them well. You do not want somebody that is not 100% convinced and is going to shoot you down. Steer away from that. Then your referee reports, very important. If you don't submit them, nothing will happen with your application. Try and say to them when they submit their referee reports, and they have to submit it via email to engineer@exa.co.za to let you know about it, so that if ECSA says they haven't received it, that you can say you are fully aware of the fact that they have sent it. They must please go and check their records. That form is AN 6.1. Certified copies of your BSc or BEng degree, very important. Certified copies of your ID, normal stuff. Proof of belonging to a voluntary association. It's a very important aspect to your application. You want to avoid any uncomfortable questions when it comes to the interview stage of things. There might be a reviewer that will ask you the question, but why don't you belong to a VA? Have you got a problem with a VA? Do you think they don't contribute to the industry? All of those uncomfortable questions, avoid that. Belong to a voluntary association. It's worth it. It's really worth it. So please do that. Then a summary of your training and experience report. We spoke about it. Your TES, your training and experience report. That's the one where you are limited to 2,000 words. Then you have got your training and experience outline. Those are for the candidates that's got 10 or more years experience. You document 7 years of your training on there already, and you focus your TRs on the last 3 years. To give you some indication, it's bullet points. So there's no long stories, bullet points. What did you do? What was the problems you solved? What was your designation? Those kind of things. Then a fully completed engineering report, R03ERPE, not exceeding 6,000 words. Be careful of that. These reviewers or interviewers are volunteers. So they're fully employed and they need to spend time on your report. So let's try and be sensitive to them. Then your CPD type activity report, it's your IPD, Initial Professional Development. Forget about CPD. CPD only applies to professionally registered individuals. They are bound by certain requirements, 25 credits over a 5-year cycle in 3 different categories, and they have to get that. IPD is initial professional development. That includes informal training, it includes webinars, not validated CPD, any of those kind of things. And if anybody tells you need a minimum requirement there, it's nonsense. You don't need a minimum, or, well, can't have a maximum, but you need to have at least something going on there, because that will also be evaluated in outcome number 3, which is how do you apply your knowledge. Then your new thing, which is that supervisor checklist. So that gets signed or completed and signed by your last supervisor, and that goes with your pack of documents. It doesn't go separately. So please note that. Then if you're now ready to submit, just a few pointers that I want you to take notice of. The first one, have your report neatly typed. That's important. Mark it clearly so that these administrators can see exactly what's where and the references are clear. Very important, pay your application fee, no payment, no review. They're quite strict on that. ECSA, I've noticed that there's a problem getting quotes out of ECSA. So if you battle with that and you're scared that you're going to miss the deadline, I suggest do the payment, get a reference, put it with your application, submit it to ECSA. Let them sort it out and you claim from your company later. Applications can only be done online, so please remember that. There's a link to the online portal. The referee reports must be submitted before they even look at your report, so please make sure that all of those things are done. In the next slide, we're going to look at the process of the application, how that works. And then please don't phone them. They're not going to answer your questions on registrations or anything like that. Only administrative questions. There's only administrative staff there now. So please don't contact them, and also ensure that your qualification documents are certified. A note here that in the past, you did, as engineers, you did not have to submit any documentation on your qualification or a transcript or your marks that you got. That is now a new thing, so you need to do that, the same as technologists, by the way. Bear that in mind. So let's have a quick look at the process, how it unfolds. So you've now seen the windows, when it opens and when it's closed. The vetting period only means that administrative staff go through your documentation to check that everything is there, that it's certified, that you've made your payment, and that the referee reports are there. Then it gets sent to a panel. The panel then have a look at it. Well, have a look at your application. In this case, it will happen between 26 March to 6th of June. And then there's certain outcomes there. They can decide to either defer you, to call you in for an experience appraisal, or gather some more information if they need to, or they can call you for a professional interview. That's what you want. Then the next step will either be for you to do the experience appraisal, if you should be called for that, or you get your letter of deferment, if that should happen to you. But if you're called for the interview, so the interview sittings will take place on a specific date, and this one will be 1 May to 31 July. That's your first window. Check the second one. And then obviously the next step will be where they let you know whether you were successful or not. Here's just a quick slide on the forms that needs to be completed. So it's once again a bit of a repetition, but the thing is you need to understand and know it. Online application form needs to be completed. Declaration signed by the applicant, and it needs to be commissioned. Very important. No commissioner, they're not going to accept it. Then a proof of your ID document. It's a repetition of what I've just been saying. Training and experience summary report needs to be there. Your TR or your TOs, if you have that much experience, must be included. Your engineering report, your initial professional development report, EDR, if you have got a foreign qualification or your qualification is not recognized in South Africa, then you will complete this form and submit it to ECSA so that they can recommend which category you should register in. Proof of a VA membership, then your qualification, remember it's a new one, needs to be submitted, and I would suggest certified. Academic record and transcript, that also needs to be submitted, and certified, and then your referee reports signed by your referee. Well, it says 3 or more, but the latest you only need 2. If you want 3, you can. There's nothing stopping you. I usually advise to get 3 in. Now, this is an interesting document. If the assessors now receive your documentation, this is how they're going to look for the evidence of the 11 outcomes. There's various groups, A, B, C, D, and E. In your A1, which is the most important, 1, 2, and 3, they are going to look for the evidence of that in your TERs, in your engineering report, and in the referee report. Now, be careful of this one. Check outcome A3, comprehend and apply advanced knowledge. They're going to look for that in your initial professional development report, your IPD report. Why? Let me give you a tangible example. Say, for instance, you go to site, but you've never been to site. So you don't know exactly how a site works, what's the story with it, the safety aspect. The safety manager, safety agent, you're going to meet all of these people on site. Then there's a more important thing called occupational health and safety regulations pertaining to the construction regulations. So, if you go to site, then I strongly advise you to go on a, 3-5 day course on the occupational health and safety regulations or the construction regulations, so you know and understand what it's all about, what hazards there are, working at height, confined spaces, what's the role of the client in the construction regulations, safety officer, what's the role, agent, what's the deal with the agent, so that you've got that knowledge and you can apply it when you go to site. Then we go to the group B, that is managing part of the engineering activities. They're going to look for that in all of your reports, including your referee report, communicating clearly. Now, this is the interesting one. They're not necessarily going to look for it in your training and experience report. You know where they're going to look for it? While you're doing the interview. They will have a checklist there that evaluates how you communicate. Do you communicate properly? Do you use your PowerPoint presentation or which presentation ever? How do you use it? Has it been thought out properly? Do you articulate yourself well? And what does that presentation of yours cover? And do you also translate your experience and your professional growth properly? Be careful of number 5. You will be evaluated there. So that's during your presentation. Then we look at 6 and 7, which is your address reasonable foreseeable impacts on humans and the environment. Environment's becoming a big issue, so they're going to look for that in all of your reports, including your legal and regulatory. Those are all your standards, codes, regulations, rules, bylaws, laws. They're going to look for that in all of your reports. Group D, conduct engineering activities ethically. They're going to heavily focus on the referee report here, and they're also going to ask questions around that during the interview process. 9 and 10, exercise sound judgment. They're going to look for that in your engineering report and in your referee report. Your responsibility, that's why you've got the organogram, 2 levels above, 2 levels below. They're going to look for that in all of your reports. Your last one, undertake professional development. There's a specific form for that. It's called your IPD form. So that one is a standalone, and they will look at that record and also what your referee has to say about your commitment towards training. You might ask yourself, when you complete your training and experience report, when does the training and experience report start and when does it end? Let's look at when does a period end. It ends when your work environment has changed, when a major task or project has been completed. Project starts, end of period. Your type of work has changed. Say, for instance, you were in the design office, now you've been moved to site. Your work has changed, new TER. Your responsibility level or function has changed, so that's when you get promoted within the company. The next one is your responsibility level or function change, so that's usually when you get promoted. Then you start a new TER. If you move from one company to another, employer change, that's also when a TER ends. And then also when your training is interrupted. That's usually when long periods of, let's call it sick leave, or no, I'm not talking about annual leave, or when you take a sabbatical, or unemployed, or any one of those, that will be another period. So when it comes to your training and experience reports and also your training and experience outline, these are the important aspects that you need to cover. First one, you need to write in the first person. You all should know that by now. You should have firstly an organogram. You'll see when I look at the actual documents, it will show there. Then it will be the nature of the problems that you have addressed, the method of analysis, developing solutions, and then the evaluation of the solutions that you put forward, the documentation, the standards, the presentations, all of those issues, management, how did you manage your people, materials, manpower, methods, money, budget, very important. You need to have some exposure to that. And then your interaction with your clients, the professional team, the contractor, the public out there. So all of those are aspects that need to be covered. Health and safety considerations, they are going to ask you lots of questions around occupational health and safety regulations. So please make sure that you address the hazardous issues, the environmental considerations, and other legislation that you will be dealing with. The Water Act is an example, the Environmental Act. There are those things to consider. And then your last one is the courses that you have completed during that time. Evidence to demonstrate your competency, your training and experience report. It's a factual report of what you've done. That's it. Not a list of the projects, not a list of all of the activities on the project. It is your input. And it's your input from graduation right up to when you do your application. So it's a natural progress that happens during the time. Yes, I know sometimes you're thrown in the deep end, but please just contextualize that in your training and experience report so that the reviewers can see what happened to you during that time. So once again, a word of caution, please do not overlap your projects, because you're going to end up with more weeks than there are in the year. And that's for your training and experience summary. So, training and experience summary. So it's a factual record of distinct phases of training and work experience. Rightio, the next one, just a simple slide, just explaining that in the olden days, the more mature gentlemen and ladies, when they applied for professional registration, it was very academic driven, it was very problem solving driven. I think there was about 4 outcomes, if you can call it that. But now we've moved to a fully blown outcomes-based evaluation process with a clear benchmark. So it takes a lot of the, my opinion, out of the way and leave it to tangibles. Let's have a look at the declaration, and I want to focus your attention to G. Understand and acknowledge that the use of AI platforms, including ChatGPT or similar technologies and or other sources, are prohibited for the completion of my reports. So you're not allowed to use any AI when it comes to your reports. I think this is going to be an interesting and contentious issue moving forward, and I think the Engineering Council need to apply their mind strongly with this, especially when it comes to my English is not so good, my spelling and grammar is not so good. Can I use ChatGPT just to fix that, but not my reports? I don't know. It's just a question that I would like to put out there. Let's look at the new form. This is now your qualifications that you need to add. Remember, it's new. This is what it looks like. So it's a detailed information on the tertiary engineering qualification. So you put all of your subjects down, year obtained, and the marks that you obtained for that with the total credits. So this is new and you need to complete it. If you're still using the old forms, please request the latest one. Find them on ECSA's website or contact me. I'll send it to you. Let's look at the training and experience report for a second. the administrative information goes at the top there. Then your organogram goes in underneath that block. Let me just interrupt myself. If you're trained under a commitment and undertaking, that is a document that's signed by your CEO and the Engineering Council, whereby your company commit to send you through a proper training program as candidates that will read your professional registration. If you've done that, please put your CNU number in that space. Back to the point. So you've got your organogram that illustrates clearly who's above you and who's below you. Please put names, designations, and professional registration there as well. Just basically what I'm saying there, organogram showing supervisors, co-workers, and those you supervised, if any. Show levels above and levels below. If those exist, if they don't, leave them out. Also remember that it's not necessarily everybody in the company that reports to you, but also other people reporting to you. Here's some wording that you can use when it comes to your training and experience report. The nature of your training and experience. Here's an example. In January 2011, I joined this company as a civil structural engineer on phase 4 of this project in Bloemfontein or wherever that was. The project scope was to provide engineering and procurement services up to technical bid evaluation and recommendation stage. The objective of which was to increase the production capacity of an existing copper processing plant from whatever amount to whatever. Here's another one. During the period February 2012 to September 2013, I contributed to a number of projects of which the details are shown below. The main characteristics of this period was that my main responsibility was as project engineer. Please steer away from contributed. What does contributed mean? Say, for instance, you were in a site meeting. I contributed to the site meeting. Did you make the coffee? Were you the chairman? What did you do? So please stay away from those kind of terminology. Nature of problems that was addressed and solved. Very important. Outcome 1, 2, and 3, and 5 in this case. On the XYC project, I reviewed a modular unit supporting dynamic equipment and performed site visits to inspect soil improvements and foundation systems. That's an example for you that you can use. When it comes to documentation reports and presentations that you prepared, examples of how you manage complex engineering activities by leading and controlling work effectively in the team environment, managing people yourself, by the way. Knowledge of finance, very important in engineering and conditions and operations of contracts. So we all know the contracts. You've got the FIDIC contracts, JBCC, NEC, there's a whole host of them. You should have some kind of exposure to them. Try to confirm how you had written clear, concise, effective, technically, legally, and editorially correct reports using correct interpretation of instructions and issued clear instructions to subordinates. So it's just that communication. Outcome number 5 again. It's not just the verbal one, it's also your ability to write properly. So here's an example. I prepared structural design criteria and detailed design calculations for review by senior management or whoever, conforming to their guidelines. So it was to the client. Design calculations were done in accordance with the AATS 114001 standard. Outcome 7, remember about that one. I reviewed general arrangements and fabrication. I reviewed general arrangement and fabrication drawings to ensure compliance with structural design. If we talk about management of materials, machine, manpower, outcome 4, 5, 6, and 7, here's another example for you. During the last months of the contract, when my detailed design was largely complete, I was transferred to site. apart from the remaining design and coordination that was completed on-site, my duties included construction monitoring, attending to queries from the contractor, and the review of steel fabrication shop drawings. Moving along, your interaction with client stakeholders and other disciplines. A number of attributes are essential at personal level. That is also your relationships with the professional team, your ethical behavior, your ability to exercise sound judgment, and to take responsibility and reflect in the grouped outcomes 8, 9, and 10. Here's an example for you. For all described projects, interaction with clients, contractors, and subcontractors were permanent. Progress meetings were held on a monthly basis. Continuous meetings were also held with operations responsible in order to coordinate interventions, planning, and get authorization for water supply shutdowns, verify supply characteristics, receive additional system information, etc. So that's a good example of that. The single outcome number 11, we've spoken about that. That's just your, well, let's call it underpinning layer that will ensure that you develop professionally and that you can increase your knowledge. Let's look at health and safety considerations. That is one of the major ones that you will be questioned on. Here's an example for you that might help you. I performed daily site safety walks with the construction team and attended site inductions on working at heights, confined spaces, hazardous materials, work and excavation permits, important procedures, and issuing of permits regarding isolation and locking out. Or you can use this example to help you. I produce the tender documents based on the FIDIC conditions of contract, monthly progress and cost reports, payment certificates, and manage the signing off of the way leave issued by the Provincial Roads Authority. Continue with that. Management of the project included the management of costs and variation order, as the financial considerations of the project was of great importance. We know that one. Managing the program and progress to complete ahead of schedule, and managing the environmental considerations contained within the environmental management plan and the environmental records of decisions that were made. Right, let's look at your engineering report and instructions. Now, if you just focus on the right-hand side, you'll see that the administrative stuff is at the top. Then you've got a block called self-evaluation, and then obviously your big block where you put all your information in. So your information should look like this. It should be a progressive illustration from when you got your qualification and how you progressively moved all the way up to where you're ready to register as a professional. So it's basically what it says there on the left-hand side. The applicant has fulfilled the required outcomes, so all your 11 outcomes need to be highlighted here. It enables the applicant to synthesize and present evidence structured in a chosen form of his or her competence by describing the work that he or she performed at a responsible level. Responsible level E, you cannot register as a professional if you're not registered or not operating on level E for at least a year. So the report must be written specifically for the application for registration. It's not a conventional project report or list of projects that you've done. It is a huge illustration of your input and what you have done on the projects. So please bear that in mind. So going back to the self-evaluation, there's a video on the self-evaluation, how to handle that. The DOR stands for degree of responsibility. Is it level A, B, C, D, or E? Now your outcomes, there's groups. Remember I showed you the groups. Group A is outcome 1, 2, and 3. So you're going to say group A, outcome 1, 2, and 3. and then you cross-reference to the TER that talks to the information that you're sharing on the left-hand side. So that's in a nutshell the engineering report. Now, completing your engineering report, just to give you some more tips, pointers, or something to help you with it, this is a report in which the applicant reflects on his or her engineering development. That's what I've been saying. And it's not necessarily on a single project, unless you've been working on a project for the past 5 years, but it's highly likely it is multiple projects that you worked on. Just for the mechanical engineers, remember that you have to highlight a design project that you worked on. The report is written in such a way that you do it in a first person singular, and what they want to see is your thinking. What was your thinking behind it? How did you handle the problems? How did you solve it? Did you consider all the other solutions that there are? And why didn't you choose those solutions? So bear that in mind. I spoke about it, the cross-reference to your TERs. So you use terminology like, as described in TER3, I designed a blah-de-blah. I've also explained on the right-hand side the self-evaluation. Here's just reiterating it. Complex engineering projects is a CEP. Complex engineering activities is CEA. And then degree of responsibility will be DOR, A to E. Remember, 6,000 words maximum. Please try and stick to that. If you really have to go over and it's very important, then rather use annexes to illustrate or to complement your application. In the holistic self-evaluation block, state 200 words or less why the information given above demonstrates that you are sufficiently competent to register as a professional. So you'll see at the bottom there's a block for the self-evaluation. So that goes in there. Checklist for engineering report. Let's look at the 11 outcomes. Outcome 1, 2, and 3. Theoretical and practical methods that you use to analyze and solve engineering problems. Then outcome number 3, that is your understanding, your knowledge. You gain that through your qualification, number 1, but more importantly, you gain more knowledge through your IPD and your exposure to the environment, your mentors, your supervisors, any one of those. 4 and 5, the planning, organizing, leading, and controlling of obviously your subordinates, the people that you report into, your presentations that you make to your clients. How do you handle the contractor? How do you handle a professional team and your interaction with that? Site experience, important one. 6 and 7, handling regulatory considerations. That is the impact on the work environment, the materials, the regulations, the rules, the various acts that you work with. So that's important. And then also the obligation to the society, profession, and the environment. Risk, 7 and 8, risk and uncertainty associated with work and its product, as well as ethical issues. Please bring something in about the ethical issues. I see ECSA's focusing heavy on the ethical side of things. Please bring something like that in. Otherwise, they're going to defer you and say you need to get experience in that. I think the reason behind it, we all know, because of all the corruption and unethical behavior that's happening in the environment. That's why ECSA's focusing on that heavily. 9 and 10, if you don't have 9 and 10, it means you're not operating on level E, and they won't accept your application. The recommendation, judgment, calls, and decisions that you make, you need to illustrate that, and you need to illustrate it on the right level. And number 10 is that ability to take responsibility for your actions, and how do you handle the outcome of these various situations that happens in your work life. Then IPD, we've stressed that enough, your initial professional development form. Here's the snapshot of the TES, the Training and Experience Summary. You will see there's a period number, date from and to, number of weeks worked. Be careful with that one, I've warned you. the employer that you're working for, position that you've held, and then subject and type of work that you did on that specific project or TER. Add the weeks up, make sure it doesn't go over the amount of weeks that there are in a year. I've brought in the TEO as well, the Training and Experience Outline. Now remember, if you've got 10 years or more, then you can use this form to help you, let's call it save words. So it's a bullet point. It looks the same as the TER. Organogram, everything is the same. Only difference is you use bullet points here. Let me give you an example. There it is. During my first period of experience, I was exposed to the basic standards and protocols of the company. Some of the projects I worked on were, then you label them. I received training in the fundamentals of slab design, undertook site visits and inspections of rebar basic reinforcing detailing. So that just gives you some idea of how you handle the TEO. Describe what you did, not the project. That's what they're after. The applicant's role and responsibilities. My responsibilities consisted of checking out all new infrastructure projects, making sure that the designs and specifications complied with the current standards and regulations. So it's a nice example. And then you can also say typical problems that I've addressed on my specific project, service delivery verifications, assuring that grain elevators and cattle facilities are kept to the contractual standards for the proper provision of public service under construction. Health and safety comes out here. Soil management calculations, verification and costing. That gives you an idea of problems that you address, responsibility for communicating and documentation. Remember outcome number 5, you will be evaluating against during your interview, giving the detailer the reinforcing details obtained from my design and then checking the bending schedules and rebar layouts before issuing them to site. If you want to address management responsibilities, then use something like this. I produce tender documents and bill of quantities for tendering process. I supervise the implementation works and construction phases. Health and safety, I'm going to say this again, they're going to ask you questions. One of them most probably will be, who do you contact first when there's a fatality on site? That will be the Department of Labor. I undertook health and safety work inspections, there you go, assured that all services, treatments and works were developed complying with occupational health and safety standards and construction regulations issued in terms of the OSH Act. Let's have a quick look at your initial professional development form, your IPD form. This is what it looks like. Remember, it's not CPD, it's IPD. So it's broken down in 3 headings: engineering courses, management courses, computer courses. The course provider, it could be your company. You can put your company down, the date that you attended it. There is no SAQA involvement because it's not a qualification. Duration, say for instance, a Friday afternoon talk, 1 hour, and the credits, there won't be any credits. But if it was a CPD event, then it will be 0.1 credits because 0.1 is 1 hour. Then it's just for office use, and remember to sign it, please. Then I want you to also understand and know what's the deal with the referee report. So this is what it looks like. So administrative information at the top, as always, of the referee. Then you will see that on the left bottom side, all the outcomes are listed there. And then also the grouping, group A, 1, 2, 3 is your outcomes. Now, your referee is going to give you these evaluation codes. It will either be CDC, which means the applicant consistently demonstrate competence, or the applicant demonstrated competence but not consistently. Then we get into the red zone. The applicant has not demonstrated competence but is developing, which means you've still got a road to go. then it's the no-go. If you see these, well, you won't see it, but if these ones start reflecting on your referee report, you can kiss your application goodbye. The applicant has not demonstrated competence and I'm unable to comment. It's just a nice way of saying I don't want to comment. So then there's a box for the reasons to support those codes. So now you know what that looks like. If you ask yourself, what's the deal with the referees? Well, they should know what the latest outcomes, levels, and all of the related engineering documents are all about, and they need to guide you and show you how to use them. If they don't, or you battle with that, feel free to contact me. I'll help you with that, but not mentoring you, just explaining it to you. So who could be your referee? It could be your mentor. It could be your immediate supervisor. It could be a colleague at a higher or same level involved with your work. Indirect supervisor, colleague not directly involved with your work. It could be your employer. It could even be your client. Just a footnote here, if you're trained under a CNU, remember I spoke about the CNU earlier, then one of your referees must come from your company or your mentor. This is this new thing called the supervisor checklist. This must be completed by your last supervisor and signed by him and submitted with all your other documentation. It's called the AN7SC form. The supervisor's details go in there. Applicant's details, your details go in there. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fields that the supervisor completes by, I don't know, telling whoever reads this your attributes, your strengths, your skills, how you perform, your professional qualities, and then there's a conclusion. In closure, I would like to start looking at, well, how does it work? So you've now submitted your documentation to ECSA. What happens now? First step is they go, it's not number 1 on this slide. The first step is the administrative one. They check that you paid, that your referee reports are there, that everything is submitted and signed and sealed. Then it goes to a group of people that will assess your submission. Now, these individuals will have 2 outcomes. Either they're going to say, yes, I'm happy with this application. You can go through to the professional interview. Or they're going to say, hang on 1 second, we're not 100% sure about you showing your competence, so we're going to refer you to a panel. So if this now goes to the panel of moderators, then they're going to go through your application documents, and they can do one of the following 3 things. They can recommend that you be interviewed, and that's called your experience appraisal, which they hammer you on all aspects of your application. There's no presentation or nothing like that. It's literally sourcing more information, going through the outcomes that they're not happy with, or they can request additional information, or basically just saying you haven't complied with all of the outcomes. So please take another year off and make sure that you satisfy these outcomes by gaining experience in them. And then you have to reapply by updating your TR, engineering report, and a new referee report. Or they can say, we're happy with you, go straight through to the professional interview, and you have to go through to the professional interview. During the professional interview, the panel can have 2 outcomes. They can say, yes, you are competent and welcome to the fraternity. You are now professionally registered, which they send through to the council. The council signs off and you're professionally registered. Or they can say, now hang on 1 second, we're really not confident to let you loose on the engineering industry, so they can refuse you, which means you have to take time out and reapply from scratch again. So try and avoid that as far as possible. And those are this is the simplest way for me to explain to you how this works or how the process unfolds. Then if you should wonder how much it costs, this is the cost structure in 2025. So if your company pays for your professional registration, if you've been registered as a candidate uninterrupted, it's going to cost your company or you 5,106 Rand. Now listen to this, if you are not registered as a candidate or you have had some interruptions, then they double it to 10,213 Rand, which is quite expensive. So try and give yourself a fighting chance and be successful in your application first time around. You really don't want to throw this money away and reapply again. Great, so that's it from me. All I can say, I wish you good luck with your application. If you need help and support, then feel free to contact me. Here's my details. We do reviews of application. We comment on your application documentation and make some recommendations. And we help and prepare you for the interview process, whether it's the EA or the professional interview. And those are additional services that we can help you with, and there's a cost involved with that, as you can expect. So good luck, and see you in the next video.